We are going to be hanging out with a very cool friend of mine, Arron Chambers from Greeley, Colorado, who is a pastor and an author and a friend. And we'll introduce him in just a minute, but you can say hello now, I guess, Arron. Nice to have you. Thanks for joining us today. We'll welcome everyone in. Megan and others are joining us as well. Hi, Sherry. Hi, Amber. Give people a chance to come in. And folks, we're going to talk about this aspect of this idea of how to bless our neighbors over food. It's a fascinating concept, and you may have some questions. We'd love to hear them. Type them in the chat, and we'll throw them at. We're going to try to stump Arron or get him talking about stuff that we all want to hear answers to. So feel free to interact with the chat. And we'll wait just a moment more. Hi, Suzanne. Hi, Kristen. Everyone's joining us. So let me introduce our guest. This is Arron Chambers. Arron is with Journey Christian Church in Greeley. How long have you been there? You said like 13, 14 years?
I've been there 13 years.
Awesome. He's famous, you guys. Arron's famous. How many books have you written? I think that makes you famous. How many books?
I've written 7.
7. So we have a lot in common. We have enjoyed working together over the years, but the thing that we do not have in common is that he's a real author and has written these books, and they're all awesome. And also, Silas just graduated from college, and from high school, and you're sending him off to Milligan College. I saw that. Was this happening this last week? So a graduate in the house. Is that kind of crazy there for you?
Oh, we're so excited. Yeah, it's crazy, but yeah, it's good. He's worked so hard, and he's a runner, and Milligan has an incredible running program. And so we're excited for him to run at the next level, especially at a school as excellent as Milligan University.
Yeah, we've had good experience there with 2 of our kids as well. So that's awesome. And you have 4 kids, right? You guys?
Yep.
You and Rhonda?
Yep.
Yeah, so Arron and I have been friends for a long time. I couldn't even tell you when we met, but I bet it was 15, 20 years ago. I don't know. But we served together on an editorial board for Christian Standard magazine for a long time, something near and dear to both of our hearts. And that's when I saw how much I grew to love this guy. And along the way, well, let me back up a little bit because we want to get the discussion going here. So if you're just joining us, welcome on Facebook Live. I'm with my friend and author and a pastor from Greeley, Colorado, Arron Chambers, and we're going to welcome your questions and try to interact with those as much as we can in just a little bit. But this is part of a thing that Mountain's doing right now. We're working our way through this series of messages on the weekend. We're calling it Bless, BLESS. And it's really just kind of out of this gut recognition we have that, man, now is a super strategic time for Christian people to be really just like, let's come out of COVID, come out of our holes and be aware of people around us and just be the best kind of Jesus followers we can be to love our neighbors. I mean, that's the number one thing Jesus told us to do, is to love our neighbors. So we're going through this series, and each letter in the word bless stands for a really super simple, practical, biblical, Jesus-like way of kind of putting some practices in our lives that look like Jesus, but can have a way of changing the world by simply loving our neighbors. And the first couple are kind of what people might expect, Arron. You know, we started out talking about begin with prayer. That's the B. That's a stretch. I realize. I know prayer doesn't start with B, but you know, that's a bit of a stretch, okay, to say B and P, but it's not a stretch to think pray for people. That we expect. Even the L stands for listen. And we talked about how important it is to listen to people. And when you do, how it opens up things and so forth. I think the E surprised a lot of people when we got up, and we borrowed these letters from Dave and John Ferguson, friends of both Arrons and mine. And we said E stands for eat. So we're going to eat with people. And as soon as we got to that topic, I mean, I preached a whole sermon on it last weekend. We're thinking about this. We're living with it. We challenged people to it. But I've been thinking of you the whole time, Arron, because you're the first person I ever knew that wrote a book about this very topic. About, I think it came out, the original title was Eats with Sinners.
Yes.
Talk to us about that. I mean, what led you to write the book? What were the surprising insights that people need to know from what led you to write the book in the first place?
Well, I wrote the book, and it was based on, I was doing a personal study through the Gospel of Luke. And as I was going through this study, I was struck with how that phrase was used. Jesus eats with sinners. He eats with sinners. And I started looking into that, and I was horrified, Ben, with how insulated and isolated my life had become. I do fantasy football with Christians. We vacation with camping with Christians. hung out with Christians, date night with Christians. You know, it was just like everybody I hung out with were Christians. And so I realized I'm doing it wrong. And so I became intentional about building relationships with people who are not Christians. And by the way, we're immersed in opportunities to do this. It's everywhere. We just have to redeem these opportunities, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But so for me, it was a personal journey where I realized, okay, I am sick of this. Like I need to get around people who don't know Jesus Christ, not because they are projects or anything shallow like that, but because Jesus loves people, and here's the thing that struck me, Ben. As I was reading this, I had a moment where I said to myself, Jesus eats with people that I cross the street to avoid. And I thought, that's got to stop. That has to stop. So anyway, the book just came out of that study and an awareness that this idea of Jesus eating with people was radical. And it really was one of the reasons they wanted him dead. And them being the religious leaders of the day. Because Ben, he did not. Here's the thing about table. I don't know how you can stop me because I can talk about this for hours. But so what happened was, as I looked at this, I realized what was actually going on when Jesus ate with sinners. It was an act of intimacy with people that were outcast. It was an act of intimacy with people who were actually called people of the soil. There was a rule that had a verbal law that was prevalent in that time. That was students of the learned shall not recline at table with the Amaharetz. And I love that word Amaharetz because it means people of the soil. And by the way, you and I are people of the soil by their standards. And Jesus ate with these people, and it blew the legalist's mind. They didn't understand why he would associate, why he would commit acts of intimacy with people of the soil. And one other thing I'll say, there were two rules that guided ancient table fellowship. The first one was the rule of reciprocity. And that was the rule: you would eat with somebody from whom you could gain something. You know, so if you look at like Luke 14, for example, there's a discussion in there like where Jesus says, "Hey, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind, because they're not going to invite you in return." You know, it's like you invite these people who cannot repay you. Because there was this game that was played in the first century, Ben, where you would eat with somebody from whom you could gain something. If you were the mayor of the town, if I could get you to come into my house, it would be horrible form for you not to invite me to your house. And because everybody lived on top of each other, they would all know it, and you would be an outcast. So the principle of reciprocity, Jesus ate with people from whom he could gain nothing. And that the legalists did not understand that. And another principle was that like eats with like. So like eats with like is like, so understanding, if people understand the basic idea of a caste system, that was in play in the first century. And you would only, if you ate with somebody, you were admitting to society that you and that person were the same caste system, so to speak. You were the same value, the same worth. And so Jesus ate with people who were so good at sinning, they were called sinners. And but he ate with them, tax collectors, sinners, and don't whitewash it. He ate with people who were like like the people we avoid and the people we talk about. And it just blew the mind of the legalists. They did not understand why Jesus would do that. And so anyway, so what happened was, in my own study, I realized I need to do everything I can to obey that clear command, that clear example of eating with sinners, and what it means to go into the world, and what it means to go to the highways and hedges and compel people to come in. So anyway, that's what started me my journey, and I'm not preaching fairy tales. I've been living this for a really long time. And once you get an experience, once you taste this, by the way, you don't want to go back. Once you taste what it's like to eat with sinners, you're not content just to eat with saints.
I love that, because it also kind of disabuses us of the notion that the sinners are them,
Yes.
because it's, at the end of the day, it's sinners eating with sinners, which is about the only kind of meal you can ever have. And the only one who could really eat with sinners, not as one, was Jesus. But this idea of stepping across lines and like eating with like, out eating with people, sharing friendship with people that might not be able to sort of pay you back, or not being friends with someone because what they're going to do for you, is actually still as radical today, I think, as it was in Jesus' day. Arron, as we've thought about this, we're thinking about how appropriate all this is at a time, Colorado is not exactly where Maryland is, but I mean, we're all in this pandemic together, and people are sort of still in this emerging, coming out of our houses, interacting, and it's a perfect time to be thinking about, okay, so am I going to go back to the way I was before, or I have some opportunities here to think about how I'm going to order my life, and how I'm going to engage with social interactions, how I'm going to think about people that are far from God, who I want my friends to be. Do you think something like this idea that you wrote your book about, is especially important now? Do you feel that vibe about how important it might be now in this time and post-COVID reality in America?
Absolutely. Ben, we have all become keenly aware of the importance of meals with other people, physical meals with other people. When it was taken from us, I become keenly aware of the importance of those opportunities with my family, with loved ones, with my mom, with relatives you're seeing for the first time after all this is kind of shutting down, and as a believer in Jesus Christ, and with people that I love and care about, and with whom I want to eat with for eternity. So yeah, for me, it's given me a keener focus and created higher priorities in regards to meals and what I do with those meal times. I cherish the meals I have with my family. I cherish the meals out with friends. I'm cherishing these new interactions with people as we're starting to come out of this, so to speak, somewhat. But no, I think it's a great opportunity, and I'm hoping, Ben, that believers, especially believers who understand what it meant for Jesus to eat with sinners, which is not a metaphor. He literally ate with people, but it also represents connecting with people, intimacy with people, because that's the cool thing, man. Like I want people to understand, anybody who sits at a table for any amount of time has experienced that table coming to life, that table becoming organic. And the longer you sit there, the more organic it becomes, and the deeper the conversation goes. And I believe that's a creation of God. And so since that was taken from us, coming back to it, I'm drawn to sit longer. I'm drawn to maximize those opportunities. I'm not taking those for granted, those moments. And so I would hope that Christians also would realize, yes, eat with family, reconnect with friends. But what am I doing to reach people who do not know Jesus Christ, who as Dave and John Ferguson would say, are far from God? And being intentional with this. Well, listen, people are not projects. We walk with integrity. Jesus loved people, and so we love people. And so if somebody is going to leave this conversation or any study on what it means to eat with sinners and believe that you eat with somebody, you build a relationship with them until they come to Jesus Christ, and then you check your box and you move on, that's a grotesque misunderstanding of what Jesus did and how he treated people. Like these are the way I define evangelism. It's an intentional relationship through which somebody is introduced to Jesus Christ. That can take years. And it's when you realize also that God is the Lord of the harvest and he wants to bring in the harvest, you just put yourself in the harvest field for as long as it takes. And but that's the thing, is I realize now, because of COVID, I'm hoping now, because of COVID and because of the pandemic and the shutdowns, that there's a core of believers at least who have a heightened sense of urgency to connect with people in meaningful, significant, eschatological ways.
Yeah. Welcome those of you who are joining us midstream here. Charlie Cox, good to see you. Someone with whom I've eaten a bunch of meals. Glad you're with us. We're with our friend Arron Chambers, and we're talking about how to love people the way Jesus did. And one of those was by sitting down over a meal with them. Arron is a guy that, we've shared some meals together. I actually remember one of the times we were eating at a restaurant somewhere. I don't even remember what city we were in. Probably some meetings that we were at, and you asked me about my family. And I remember thinking, Ben, pay attention, because I think he actually cares about the answer. And because I remember you were leaning in and you were listening. You're such a good listener. And then we got to talking about movies, and you were saying, "Oh, Ben, you have to watch this movie." I wrote it down because it's like I have, but we were engaging in a way that was just different than let's get the food down our throats. Way back then, you were thinking. I was learning from you then. This is, you said, let's get practical, because let's talk about some specifics here. People are like, okay, how does this actually work? I mean, what do I do? Do I just go knock on my neighbor's door and say, let's sit down and eat? Nobody wants to be a project. And that's not, nobody that Jesus ate with felt like a project. He just loved people. He just hung out with them and they were friends and they did a lot of it over food. You're good at that too. Can you just give us some practical stuff? Like, how would this work? What would you recommend? Where would we start? Well, how could we do some of this?
Well,
got any stories? Got any
Yeah,
stories where you've seen it work?
Yeah, I've got stories. It starts with intentionality. Just intentional, like, you know what? Hey, I'm going to redeem the times. I'm going to redeem opportunities in which I'm immersed. So, for example, I like drinking coffee. Well, I don't have to drink coffee by myself every day, and I can reach out to friends who may not have a relationship with Jesus Christ and say, "Hey, how about we get some coffee together?" I like going to the gym. Ben, the gym is a place where people lift weights and they exercise. I don't know if you knew that or not, but so, yeah,
No.
no. So like going to the gym. So I will intentionally go to the gym to connect with people and build relationships with them. If you play golf, how about playing golf with somebody who does not know Jesus Christ once a month? If you have a play group, how about inviting someone to your play group who does not know Jesus Christ? How about going out of your way to connect with your neighbors and invite them over now that things are starting to open up for maybe outdoor eating, a barbecue or something, just some way to connect, somewhere where they feel safe and whatever is relevant for your situation. It can be anything. Like we've done as big as my family and I connected with the city to build a playground for our community. It was a special needs playground. It ended up being a 4-year project, $1.3 million, 9-acre property.
Wow.
We built, and in that experience, built countless relationships with the city, with city officials, and it's now located by our rodeo, which is the biggest thing we have in town. I'm actually in doing a movie and written a screenplay, and we're working with a studio now out of Tennessee. I'm the high school track coach and cross country coach. I've been doing it this is my 8th season. And so this morning at 7 a.m., we're still in track season. So 7 a.m. I was up coaching track, and I've been doing it for 8 years. And so Ben, every day, year round, pretty much when the season, when it's a normal season, every day I leave the office at 3:00 and I'm at practice until about 6. And my days off, I'm at meets, pretty much year round. And now obviously I have my wife's blessing and I'm coaching my kids. So it's an incredible opportunity. But so that I got into that 8 years ago because I thought I need to connect with my community in a more significant way. And I love kids, I love young people, and I thought coaching. And just about the exact same time, my son, who is also a runner in college, he said, "Hey, Dad, they're looking for a coach for our team." And so I talked to the church here, and one thing led to another, and I've been doing it now for 8 years. And so what I'm saying, Ben, it's just we all have opportunities around us to redeem moments, to redeem a hobby, and just say, hey, once a month, once a week, I'm going to ask somebody to come and do this with me. And here's the thing: now the next step is when you're in those moments, you listen, you tell your story. You do not have to have anything memorized. You don't have to know 5 spiritual laws. You don't have to know the 5-finger exercise. Like, you just talk, just do life. Because what I found is this, man. I found if a guy knows you care about his crabgrass, he's more apt to care about your Christ. And it may take years before he says, hey, what's going on here with you and in your relationship with Christ? You go to church all the time. Then the door opens up and you have a chance to share it. And I've seen it happen quickly. I've seen it happen over a period of years. You asked about stories. One of my favorite stories, and it's true, man. This has happened, dude. I was my first year coaching, and this guy's now my really dear friend. So I'm going to tell this story graciously because he's an amazing man of God. But I met this guy, and he was a jerk. He was the head coach, and he was a jerk. and I didn't like him at all. Like, he was just a pain. He was just like mean, and like he could be nice, but everything about him just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. But I was like, I like this guy. I like him. And so I was a pastor my first year coaching. I'm an assistant coach, and the last bus ride before state, we're pulling in after a long meet, and you have athletes, so you know what this is like. Then we pull in. It's late at night, Saturday night. He's like, "Hey Chambers, what time is your church start tomorrow?" And I'm like, "We have 3 services," and I gave him the times. And then he's like, "All right, so who do you want to run in the 4x4 next week?" Da, 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 da. So I'm like, "Okay, that's it." He never showed up. We coached a whole nother season together, and then he stopped coaching. And so flash forward 5 years later. 5 years later, he shows up in my office, and he comes in with a backpack. I'm not lying. And he pulls a Bible out of the backpack. He says, "Hey Chambers, tell me about this." And he throws the Bible on the table. I'm like, "All right, dude, all right." And I started in Genesis, and we took an hour, and I talked through the entire Bible, presented the gospel to him, and we had a chance to baptize him that next Tuesday. And he stood at right before the baptistry. Right before the baptism, he stood before the baptistry, and he said all the things that I'd experienced. He's like, "Guys, I was a jerk. I was this, I was that, and Jesus Christ has changed my life." Oh my goodness, I love that man. He's like, ever since we've been open, he sits to my right, about 3 rows back, with his wife, and just an incredible man of God. He's thirsty for the word. He studies all the time. But now listen, there were a lot of people who were part of that story. But I'm excited for the chance I had to work with him for 2 years and just be a consistent Christian witness, be his friend, love him, and not be shocked by anything, because I've had a chance now to see the transformational power of Jesus Christ. And so, once you experience that, like, I got a bunch of stories like that. But here's the thing. That's the thing. It's people need to take the pressure off themselves. This is not about stressing out. It's about just do life with somebody else. And God opens the doors. He's the Lord of the harvest.
I love the phrase that you do life, and it's kind of like opening your table. Like, ultimately, this is out of the hospitality of God, right? Who opened his table and said, "You've got a place at my table. I'm going to call you family. You're invited in," and just extending that. And I love the way that Jesus, just modeled it so perfectly. Examples like the one you gave are encouraging. I think we have to be careful that we're not like, okay, that's always, I'm going to drive. I'm going to drive and control this agenda and push it to that, because, as you said, Arron, I mean, the Lord leads this thing. So, well, we're winding down out of time. Give us some final challenge and encouragement here about people that are listening to this, both live and later, are listening because they feel like you just described. They're like, I have friends that I love who are far from God. Or maybe neighbors that I'm willing to be more of a servant for Christ. How can I be a blessing? And these opportunities are going to come. Give us some encouragement, either practical or just send these people out to go eat some food. You're an expert in eating, aren't you? So
yes, I am.
Give us a good word.
Yeah, I would say there are no lost causes. There are no lost causes. And one of the things I love about the story of the prodigal son is that, so the father, who's God, did not follow his son into crazy town, but he never stopped loving him, and he never stopped looking his direction. And the second that boy turned his face towards home, he ran like a maniac, like a crazy fool, and hugged him and embraced him. And I want to say that because there are no lost causes. And there has been so much division over the past year and a half in families and in churches. And I think one of the things that I want to see happen and to encourage people is we, as children of Jesus Christ, as followers of Jesus Christ, we have an opportunity as we eat with sinners to push back against the darkness, to bring healing to relationships. And it's not complicated. You don't need a college degree, a Bible college degree. It just takes intentionality of saying, you know what? I love people. I love my neighbors. And so we're going to get together for spaghetti. Well, they're not comfortable meeting inside. Well, we're going to set it up in the backyard or whatever. But we're going to redeem the times. We're going to look for opportunities to build relationships with people, to bring healing and to listen and to seek to understand before we're understood. But I want to tell you, this is such an incredible opportunity. And food is a powerful force. Jesus knew what he was doing. It's why he used food so effectively. That's why he fed the multitudes. That's why he instituted the Last Supper. That's why when he talks about heaven, he talks about us eating. And so I want to encourage people. Listen, anybody can do this. Anybody can do this. It's just a matter of having a focus on doing what we can in our worlds with our resources, our spaghetti, our sandwiches, our coffee, to fill the banquet hall. Because Jesus loves people, and he wants us to love people too. And that looks a lot like us eating with sinners and going out of our way to love them as well. Because that's the thing. It's the coolest thing is I have been around countless tables and had countless conversations with people who do not know Jesus Christ. And I've seen the table come to life. And once you experience that, it's like you wouldn't trade it for anything.
That's beautiful, man. Thank you for that and for your time. Yeah, I mean, what would you say to someone that's like, I invited someone, they said no. You continue to invite, hang in. You got any advice for people like that?
Well, I'm really big on Christians not being annoying or weird. So, like, don't be annoying or weird. If they say no, they say no. It may not be you that God wants to use to connect with them. And I'd say, no, I'm not pushy. I'm just like, I just think, here's the thing I've learned is, I really become comfortable with the fact that God knows what he's doing and that God loves people more than I ever could. And he is the Lord of the harvest, and he'll open up doors if we'll simply put ourselves in the field. That's a mixed metaphor, but if we'll put ourselves in a situation, he'll open the doors. And I'd say don't force it. Don't force it. That's the thing is we as Christians, when I was in Bible college and I worked in a restaurant, I was so stinking annoying. I wish I could go back to that guy and punch him in the throat. I was so annoying. I was so intent on leading everybody to salvation within the first 2 minutes of any conversation, going through my 5-finger exercise, going through all the scriptures that I memorized in Bible college. And I was so ineffective. I was basically the equivalent of a street preacher. And a street preacher, my problem with street preachers is not that they are speaking untruths, is that the context is wrong. The most proper context and effective context for truth is love, a loving relationship. So I would say don't give up. Prayerfully look for opportunities, but open your eyes, and you'll see that we are immersed in opportunities to connect with people. You don't have to build a playground. You don't have to make a movie. It's just make dinner, start a conversation.
That's a good word. That's such a good word. It just feels to me like this is such an important thing for us to get our heads around, being intentional at this cultural moment we're in. I mean, think about it. We live in such a divisive, polarized, angry, highly offended culture. No, everyone's like running to opposite corners, ready to, if they come out, it's always with boxing gloves on. We're coming out of a period of unprecedented isolation where everyone's been eating meals by themselves in their homes, with Grubhub. And there's simultaneously this sort of openness now as to big questions about what life is like as we're getting back to normal. Everyone's asking, is my life going to be like it was before, or is there something better? There's all these are converging at one time. And I just think it's a great time for Christian people not to be annoying, but to be Christ-like and to love. And one of those ways is thinking about the 21 meals you will probably eat this week and wonder if there's one of them you could share with someone and just be their friend. And that's where we're going to, as we say, lop it off like a hunk of bologna right there, because it's a food item and that works with us. Hey, Arron, how do we get your book?
You can find it on Amazon, Tyndale Publishing, Nav Press Publishing. Just spell out my name correctly and you can find it online anywhere. Arron, Arron Chambers.
So spell his name correctly, which means he means to say spell Arron incorrectly, and that's how you'll find him.
He's never heard that. My mom. You want to take that with my mom?
Never. Yeah, I'm not going to. I would never say anything about your mother, but I will say this about you. I love this guy. I hope we get together soon and are able to eat some food together, my friend. Right. Until then, people can follow you, find you on social media. Is there anything we need to know about that if we want to go connect with you somehow?
Just at Arron Chambers, pretty much everywhere.
Okay. Arron.
Yes.
Arron. All right. Hey, guys, thanks for joining us, you all. I hope this has been encouraging and helpful. I'm sure it has. Think about the 21 slots you have to eat some meals. Share one of them with someone sometime. Let God do the rest. Thanks so much to our special guest, Arron Chambers. Thanks for joining us. This is Facebook Live, and we are out. Good night, everybody.